Hello friends, welcome back. Here we share stories that entertain and educate our young viewers. Well, without wasting any more time, let's begin with today's story. In a cozy little cottage nestled at the edge of a quiet village lived Tilly, a kind-hearted storyteller. Her days were filled with baking delicious treats and tending to her herb garden, while her evenings were spent bringing joy to the village children with her enchanting tales. By her side was always her loyal companion, Toto, a fluffy gray cat whose emerald green eyes sparkled with mischief and whose soft fur seemed to absorb all the sunshine. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and stars began to twinkle, children from the village would gather around Tilly's cottage, their laughter echoing through the twilight. They would sit on tree stumps or fallen logs surrounding Tilly in a circle, hanging on to her every word. And Toto, being the curious cat that he was, would often curl up on Tilly's lap, his tail swishing in time with her storytelling. One night, as the moon cast a silvery glow over the land, bathing the cottage in an ethereal light, Tilly began her story. Tonight, dear ones, I shall tell you about a secret garden that only appears under the moonlight. The children leaned in closer, their eyes wide with wonder. The old woman took a deep breath, her gaze drifting into the distance as if she were seeing the garden herself. Long ago, she started, her voice as soothing as warm honey. There was a curious boy named Leo who lived on the outskirts of this very village. Now, Leo was a dreamer. His head was filled with fantastical ideas, and his pockets with treasures he found on his adventures. Be it a smooth, colorful stone, or a feather that had fallen from a passing bird. As Tilly wove her tale, Toto would often meow softly, adding his own dramatic touch to the story. The children giggled at this, and sometimes they would even ask the cat what he thought would happen next. Of course, Toto had no answers for them, but his puzzled meows were met with more rounds of laughter. One night, Tilly continued, her eyes twinkling, Leo decided to explore the whispering woods that lay just beyond his house. Armed with only a flickering lantern, he ventured into the dark, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. The trees loomed over him, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. But Leo pressed on, his curiosity guiding his steps. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and creating eerie sounds that echoed through the woods. The children snuggled closer to each other, their imaginations painting vivid pictures of the adventure unfolding before them. Meanwhile, Toto had jumped down from Tilly's lap and was now perched on a nearby windowsill, his green eyes gleaming in the darkness. As Leo walked deeper into the woods, the path became unclear, and the shadows seemed to dance around him. Just when he thought he couldn't go any further, he noticed a faint glow ahead. With renewed hope, he quickened his pace, eager to discover the source of the light. At this point in the story, Tilly paused, allowing the suspense to build. The children were on the edge of their seats, their imaginations running wild. Some held their breath, afraid to miss a single word. Tilly let out a dramatic sigh. When Leo finally reached the clearing, his jaw dropped in amazement. There, bathed in the silvery light of the moon, was a sight he had never seen before. A beautiful garden lay before him, filled with flowers that shimmered with hues of blue and silver. The petals of these magical blossoms were delicately veined, and their fragrance filled the air with a sweet, otherworldly scent. The children gasped, their eyes shining with awe. They could almost feel the cool night breeze carrying the intoxicating fragrance to their noses. Toto let out a low whistle, impressed by the garden's beauty. As Leo stepped into the garden, the sound of gentle music reached his ears. He followed the melody until he came across a babbling fountain in the center of the clearing. The water cascaded down layers of moss-covered stones and shimmered under the moon's gaze. It was as though the garden itself were alive, breathing and pulsing with an energy that was both enchanting and mysterious. Tilly's voice dropped to a whisper as she described the fountain, creating an atmosphere of enchantment. The children were completely captivated, their imaginations painting vivid images of the magical scene. Suddenly, a giggle broke the spell, and Leo turned around to see a group of tiny figures fluttering about. They were fairies, no bigger than his thumb, with gossamer wings that glistened in the moonlight. Their laughter tinkled like wind chimes, and their presence filled the garden with an air of unreality. At this point, the children were on the edge of their seats, their eyes wide with anticipation. Could Leo befriend the fairies? What adventures awaited him in the Moonlight Garden? "Welcome, Leo," one of the fairies chimed, her voice like the tinkling of bells. "We've been waiting for you." Leo, still in awe of the garden's beauty, managed to stammer out a greeting. He had never imagined he would one day meet fairies, and the thought both frightened and thrilled him. "We know you from the village," another fairy added, her wings shimmering with iridescent colors. "We've watched you playing and adventuring. You have a kind heart, Leo, and that is why we have brought you here." The fairies explained that the garden was a sanctuary for dreams, a place where thoughts and wishes took flight and were carried to the sleeping villagers. It was their duty, the fairies said, to collect the dreams from the garden and deliver them to those who dreamed. "But how can I help you?" Leo asked, eager to be of service. The fairies led him to the glistening fountain, its surface now reflecting not water, but hundreds of tiny dream bubbles. Each bubble was like a miniature world, swirling with images and emotions that had floated into the garden from the sleeping villagers. "Our job is becoming too difficult," one of the fairies confessed, her voice laced with worry. "The dreams are growing heavy, and we are too small to carry them all. We need your help, Leo, to bring the dreams back to life." Leo, feeling a sense of responsibility, nodded in agreement. Together with the fairies, he dipped his hands into the fountain and began to blow on the dream bubbles, gently coaxing them back to their original form. As he did, images and emotions swirled around him, filling his heart with wonder and excitement. The fairies danced around Leo, their laughter echoing in the garden as they watched the dreams take flight once again. One by one, the bubbles rose from the fountain, floating up through the air and disappearing into the night sky. "Thank you, Leo," the fairies chimed in unison, their voices ringing with gratitude. "You have saved our garden and the dreams of the villagers." As the first rays of sunlight began to peek over the horizon, the fairies led Leo back to the entrance of the garden. "Remember, Leo," they said, "the garden will always be here, waiting under the moonlight for those with pure hearts." Then, as quickly as he had appeared, Leo was gone, leaving the fairies to tend to their magical garden. When the first rays of sunlight touched the garden, it vanished. All that remained was the whispering woods and the curious boy's unforgettable adventure. Tilly's story came to an end, leaving the children in a world of make-believe. The silence that followed was only broken by the soft purring of Toto, who had curled up in Tilly's lap once again. "What a wonderful story," one of the children finally said, breaking the silence. "Can we visit the Moonlight Garden too?" another asked hopefully, their eyes shining with wonder. Tilly smiled, her heart warmed by the children's enthusiasm. "Perhaps," she said mysteriously. "If you look under the moonlight, you might just find it." With their dreams filled with magical gardens and dancing fairies, the children made their way home, their laughter echoing in the twilight. As for Tilly, she settled back into her chair, ready to share more stories with those who loved to listen. After all, there were countless tales waiting to be told in the cozy little cottage nestled at the edge of the village. And so, under the soft glow of the lamp and the watchful gaze of Toto, the stories continued late into the night, weaving dreams and adventures for all who gathered around. And friends, this is the end of our story. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. Also, Subscribe to our channel to never miss out on our exciting stories. We wish you sweet dreams and happy adventures. Until next time, keep reading and exploring the magical world of stories.